Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste and a hearty welcome to one and all for today's 42nd session of our series Gift. Gita for inner freedom and transformation. Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, Akshara Brahma Yoga, has a total of 28 verses. Today, we shall be learning from verses 21 to 25. In these concluding verses, Lord Krishna explains different paths of departing from this world, one of which leads to liberation and the other leads to rebirth. He explains the dark and bright paths of liberation. The way of light path, bright path of dark path leads to rebirth. Dr. Asha Nayak, Dr. Bhaskar, Sharmila Bhaktharam, Dr. Sundar shall present these verses and help us to understand these options. Srimati Pannaga shall moderate today's session and she will also give us a brief introduction to the day's topics. Over to Srimati Pannaga.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Namaste, friends. We are in the concluding section of the 8th chapter, Akshara Brahma Yoga. Akshara Brahma Yoga, as we all know, falls in the Madhyama Shatkam, where the focus is on the Tat Padartha or Ishvara. The primary spiritual sadhana prescribed in the Madhyama Shatkam is nishkama upasana, where God is the goal and we use the world as the means to achieve God, to achieve or attain God. Upasana, to just remember what it means, Upasana is Saguna Brahma Manasa Vyaparaha. That is, it is a mental activity focused on the name and form of God. Whether it is Arishta Devata Rama or Krishna or any Devi or a symbol like Om. Here in the 8th chapter, as a deviation from all the other chapters, Lord Krishna presents Krama Mukti for moksha. We will learn about it soon. He does not mention Gnana Yoga or Jivan Mukti that he has glorified in the entire Gita. So how does the 8th chapter begin? It actually begins in the end of the 7th chapter, Gnana Vijnana Yoga, where Lord Krishna talks about his own para and apara prakriti, that is his lower and higher nature. In the end of the 7th chapter, however, Lord Krishna says, having resorted to me, those who strive for freedom from decay and death, come to know that Brahman completely, the self completely, and karma completely. And then in the next verse, that is the last verse of the 7th chapter, he says, those with disciplined mind who know me, along with Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, and Adhiyagna, will remember me at the time of death also. There are 3 new words that Lord Krishna presents in this last verse, and he also presents Brahman and the self and karma in a different context. That's why the 8th chapter starts with Arjuna's questions, asking Krishna as to what these terms are. Lord Krishna has already mentioned the terms karma. The entire 3rd chapter is dedicated to karma yoga. Then Brahma we have heard before. and also Atma. But however, here they have a slightly different, a few of the words have a slightly different meaning given the context of the chapter. So Arjuna begins by asking, Kim Tad Brahma, Kim Adhyatmam, Kim Karma, calling Krishna as Purushottama, and the rest of the words follow. Lord Krishna's teaching begins with the words Akshara Brahma. Hence, the name of this chapter is called Akshara Brahma Yoga. Let us briefly understand these words. Brahman is defined as Paramam Aksharam, the supreme imperishable entity, the eternal, changeless, all-pervading consciousness principle. Akshara means to perish. So Akshara means the only imperishable entity. Adi Atma is the Brahman obtaining within this body. Here Atma refers to Sharira. That's why we should never attempt to study the Gita by ourselves, because each word in each chapter has a different meaning. Adi Atma we know commonly as Jivatma. Now there is Maya. Maya is not asked by Arjuna, but then we need to know that Maya is a total Karana Sharira. Just like how our own body is made up of 3 layers, that is the Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and then Sthula Sharira. This entire universe also has a total Karana Sharira, that is Maya, the total Sukshma Sharira, and the total Sthula Sharira. We will just come to that. So Adhi Yagna, which Krishna has mentioned, is Brahman plus Maya. And that is what we commonly know as Ishvara. And this is the universe in its unmanifest form. Brahman is the unchanging principle. Maya is the changing matter principle, but in unmanifest form. Krishna here says, Adhi Yagna Aham Eva Atra Dehi. So he is saying that I am this Ishvara, present in seed form. Narayanaha, which is a common name for Lord Vishnu, is derived from Naranam Jivanam Samuhaha. Naranam is humans, Jivanam is all the living beings, Samuhaha. This entire collection is Naram. And Ayanam is residence. So Lord Krishna is saying that he dwells in every living being. So every living being is the residence of the Lord. Now we have learned about the unmanifest part, where Adi Yagna is unmanifest. Brahman plus Maya are unmanifest. Now we come to the manifestation part. So we have seen in our Puranas that Lord Brahmaji, who is supposed to be the creator of this universe, he emerges from Lord Vishnu's navel seated in a lotus. And when he opens his eyes, the universe becomes manifest. So Adhibhuta is Brahman plus the manifest gross material universe, the Sthula Prapancha, comprised of the Pancha Mahabhutani. Adhidaiva is Brahman plus the manifest total Sukshma Prapancha, that is a subtle universe, which is the total mind, the cosmic mind. Each manifestation of Brahmaji lasts for 1 day. So 1 day of Brahmaji is each manifestation, which is 1 kalpa or 4.32 billion years. Though it seems like a lot, it is still finite. And this entire manifestation resolves when Brahmaji closes his eyes, and that again lasts for another kalpa or again another 4.32 billion years. So this is the cycle of manifestation and unmanifestation. So there is no creation in Hinduism at all. Everything always existed, appearing, rather manifesting and unmanifesting. Have we learned these meanings before? Yes, we have very recently learned it in the Mandukya Upanishad. So what we learned as Virat, that is the waking consciousness in the waking state, that is Adibhutam, and what we learned as Hiranyagarbha, that is the dream state, of experience, the total mind, that Lord Krishna calls it Adidaivam here. And Adiyagna is what we've learned as Ishvara. That is the causal state. Now, the only word left in Arjuna's list of questions is karma. Karma here is defined as the deliberate actions of human beings responsible for future manifestation. So, Srishti Karanam Karma. In the third chapter, we learned of karma only in terms of action and the doership of action and the offering of that action to the Lord. Here, in the context of creation, Krishna says that it is the actions, the deliberate actions of human beings which result in the manifestation of the universe. So all living beings emerge to fructify the results of their past karmas. And once these results are fructified, they resolve during unmanifestation. And each living being comes with their own set of karmas. So there are different worlds that also emerge to fructify different karmas. And there is this eternal cycle of avyaktam and avyaktam, a manifestation and unmanifestation. And like I said before, there was no time when the universe did not exist. So this is karma. Now that Krishna has answered the 6 words, he comes to the most important part of Arjuna's question, that is, what is the significance of remembering God at the time of death? Now we know in the entire Prathama Shatkam, Lord Krishna has said that you are immortal, you are not this limited jiva with body mind, you are boundless, infinite, eternal. But here he mentions the time of death. And in verse 8.5, he says, dropping the body at the time of death, one who departs remembering me alone attains my nature. So we know that it is during our daily lives only, it is very difficult to remember God because we are constantly doing something or the other. At home, there are multiple things to do. At your workplace, there are multiple people to talk to, and again, so many things to get done. And then we come back home, and again, the whole list of chores, it's unending. So how do we remember God at the most difficult and painful time of death? If we can't remember God when we're calm, it's very difficult to stay calm, anchored in God through the storm. Bhartruhari in his Vairagya Shatakam says very strongly that trying to remember God at the time of death without being a devotee in life is like digging a well when your house is on fire. So it's practically impossible. So what must we do? Or rather, who can remember God at the time of death? Only a nishkama upasaka can remember God at the time of death because God has been the dominant thought throughout his life. And because he is a nishkama upasaka, he has only desired God. He does not desire any worldly pleasures. So even at the time of death, no worldly pleasure comes to his mind, but only the thought of God. So the steps in Krama Mukti will be the Nishkama Upasaka remembers God at the time of death. And then he travels to Brahma Loka, which is the highest heaven, where he learns Brahma Gnanam from Lord Brahmaji and attains moksha. So this Nishkama Upasaka hasn't had the opportunity to come to learn Brahma Gnanam in Bhuloka. So he travels in this path, but eventually attains moksha. So he does not come back to this samsara. This is the background so far. And now in verses 20 and 21, Lord Krishna comes back to Akshara Brahma, saying how it is that unmanifest, which is the witness of all this eternal cycle of manifestation and unmanifestation. I invite Dr. Asha Nayak ma'am to please tell us more about verse 21. Dr. Asha Nayak, ma'am, please.
Om Gurubhyo Nama. Jai Gurudev. In simple words, meaning of this or gist of this shloka is the jiva, that is all of us, have to reach a highest goal, that is moksha. Reaching moksha is not traveling or transforming, but claiming yourself as Brahman. This is a misnomer, traveling. We are here and we claim. In this chapter, Akshara Brahma Yoga, 7 verses, that is 15 to 22, Lord Krishna is comparing two forms of goal, finite, infinite. Karma phala is finite, parichinnam. Upasana phala is infinite, called apichinnam. Also happens to be Krama Mukti and Ishvara Prapti. Highest goal of happens to be infinite in nature. Definition of avyaktam, that is Brahmaji holds the creation and throws it out. So this withholding avyaktam means not presenting, keeping it inside, is called avyaktam. The word creation must be replaced by the word manifestation. Next slide. Avyakta number 2 is a conscious principle known as Chaitanyam, imperishable and timeless. Definition given in Mandukya is aha para yaya, that aksharam abhigamyate. Now it is called akshara, colorless, formless, smellless and tasteless. Next slide. Here Krishna gives most important message to differentiate between two, the death of the jnani jiva and death of the ajnani jiva. Now avyakta number 1 is ajnani jiva, will be going round and round in Vyavaharika, and is Maya, lower nature of Ishvara, is Apara Prakriti, Karana Shariram, and will keep you in Sansara only. Avyakta number 2, no Punarjanma, other name is Akshara, pure existence, which is non-returnable destination, Param Gati, and saves you from Samsara, something like a deep state and deep state sleep and witness to Karana Shariram. Next slide. Now we go to the slide is avyakto akshara iti yuktahu paramagatim yam prapyam na nivartante tat dhama paramamam. The meaning is given and I already explained. So next slide is Bhashyam. First line is, next slide again. Ye asau avyakta akshara iti yukta. Next slide. This avyakta number 2, which is called akshara. The next line is Tamma eva aksharyankam bhavam ahu parama prakrishta gatim. That very same akshara, which has been named akshara, is avyaktam bhavam, is pure existence, which is also called paramam, is also known as a prakrishtam, means greatest, highest. Gati is a destination, goal. Why do we say ultimate goal? Because the goal is not temporary, permanent, and this goal is not returnable. This is the crust of the shloka. Now, this is given also in a chapter 9:21. Next verse. Next line. Next line is Yama bhavam gatva na nivartate samsaraya tat dhama sthanam paramam prakrishtigatam. Here, Sthul and Suksha Smarira will call as a Vyaktam, and Karana Shariram is called Avyaktam number 1. And you and me, that is above, witness of Karana Shariram, is in a deep sleep state, Avyakta number 2. Therefore, reaching Brahman, Avyakta number 2, ultimate destination, that ultimate goal we want to attain. How? Not by traveling, not by transforming, but saying that you are Brahman. The same thing is given in Mandukya, saying that Brahma Vedati, Brahma Viva Bhavati. Next slide. Therefore, Gatva means Jnata, knows that I am that Brahman. Na Nivartante, that means I will never come back. How? That his Suksha Sarma Shariram merges into Hiranyagarbha. Sthula merges into Virat. And Karana merges in Antarmay. After that, Maranam, no Nivartante, not coming back, because all this is already merged. Next slide. That is tat dhanastanam paramam prakushtam matma vishno paramam padi iti artha. So here Brahma Dhama Sthanam means it is abode. This abode is very confusing. Abode means you will think it is Vaikuntha Loka or Adisheka, etc. No, it is just Sthanam and it is Swarupam. So where does he go? It is at, this is Prakrishtam at Vishnu's feet. Now this sloka has to be told with 19 and 21 together. Why? Because in verse 19, Jiva Bhutva Bhutva Pralete. And 21st, that is general rule. And 21st, Jnani Jiva Bhutva Bhutva Na Pralayante. That is exception. So general rule is Taka and exception is Anuvada. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that detailed explanation with beautiful slides. So, verses 20 and 21, Lord Krishna again states that Akshara Brahma is that eternal, imperishable reality existing through all the cycles of manifestation and unmanifestation. Just like the Turiya exists through cycles of deep sleep, waking, and dream state, just like that, the Akshara Brahma exists through all the states of creation. It is a silent, unchanging witness of the manifest and unmanifest condition of matter. It is the observer, subject, different from and beyond the observed. So it is beyond space and time. And here, Lord Krishna emphatically teaches us to claim that we are that Akshara Brahma, that it is our ultimate abode. And as ma'am explained, it is not a location. Lord Krishna has already stated that he is present in each of us. As the seed, when it manifests, then Lord Krishna is present in each of us, and it is only losing our ego that we can claim that Akshara Brahma. I now invite Dr. Bhaskar to please explain verse 22.
Om Gurubhyo Namaha. So in the previous verse, the discussion was about matter, energy, Maya, and Avyakta number 2, that is consciousness. So the nature of Brahman, which is beyond time and space, is presented again in this verse, 8.22. Coming to the verse, Purushaha Saha Paraha Partha Bhaktya Labhyastu Ananya Yasya Antaha Sthani Bhutani Ena Sarvamidam Tatam. O Arjuna, indeed the Supreme Lord can be attained by undivided devotion. All beings are in him, and all this is pervaded by him. So, the Avyakta number 2, the consciousness principle, here it is called Parapurusha. So, he is the Supreme Brahman, the highest reality, and the absolute truth. This absolute Brahman is Yasya Antaha Sthani Bhutani, in which Brahman alone rests in all the beings. The idea is Brahma doesn't rest in creation. On the other hand, the whole creation is in the Brahman. So, Vishwadaram Gagana Sadashyam. If you go to Megha Varnam, you will go into Apara Prakriti. So here, Krishna is explaining both Saguna and Nirguna aspect, both. So, this consciousness is Ena Sarvamidam Tatam, means this consciousness pervades the whole creation. So, the most important thing is, because if you talk something about existence, consciousness should be present. Therefore, how can we talk about something without being aware of that? Therefore, existence presupposes knowledge, knowledge presupposes consciousness. So, this consciousness pervades the whole creation, that is Brahman. So, Krishna feels here that many of the people might find it difficult because it's too high a subject matter. So, Krishna says, don't get disheartened. Everybody will come to the level of appreciation, but what is required is a sincere desire. That means to say, the saguna and nirguna aspect is explained here. So Krishna says, Ananya Bhaktya Labhyaha. By your nishkama bhakti, you can reach nirguna Brahman. So if you can understand that alone, that is the ultimate goal or the destination. So because if that is, in order to reach nirguna Brahman, one has to go beyond time and space. If everything falls within time and space, then that will lead to mortality. That is the training of time, jnana, mrityu, jara, vyadhi. So once you have understood training of time and sincerely voted for nirguna Brahman, that is the timeless Brahman, you are called a nishkama bhakta or a mumukshu. So on the other hand, those who are not able to become a mumukshu, for them, Krishna says, with their sincere desire, they can continue to be a saguna bhakta. Sooner or later, they will get qualification for nirguna bhakti. Therefore, he says, Anyaha bhaktya nishkama bhaktyasyaha purusaha labhyaha. That Brahman is attainable even if is saguna bhakta. So here Krishna completes his comparative study of God as higher goal and world as lower goal. So an intelligent person could vote for God and not for the world and become a nishkama upasaka. This is the idea. So God should be our destination. These two destinations will be discussed in next verse, and from up to 27th verse, two paths to reach the destination will be explained in 24th and 25th verse, and two travelers and two routes will be talked about further up to 27. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhaskar sir, for that nice explanation, including the important phrases that consciousness, that knowledge presupposes, that existence presupposes knowledge, and knowledge presupposes consciousness. So here, Lord Krishna is telling us that Ananya Bhakti, Ananya, that Lord Krishna is not separate from any of the jivas. He states that Akshara Brahman, he calls him Purusha here, Parapurusha, is greater than this vast infinite universe in which all sakama bhaktas are immersed in. Rather, this entire universe rests in Brahman. Just like there are infinite waves, all of them rest in water. Just like we can have multiple number of pots, yet they're all made of clay. Lord Krishna pervades everything and he is never away from us. This reinforces bhakti as the essential guiding force in life to reach God. Because we have so many things to distract us, it is difficult to go from sakama to nishkama bhakti. And from sakama to nishkama upasana also. But by having bhakti in the Lord, Shraddha Bhakti, Lord Krishna says that it is possible to reach that Paramdhama. And like Dr. Bhaskar said, it nudges the Nishkama Upasaka who is so close to Gnana Yoga because he has developed dispassion towards the world. He's developed Viveka and Vairagya. So it is very easy for him to understand Gnana Yoga and attain Jivan Mukti here itself. Yet, in this chapter, Lord Krishna does not present Jivan Mukti or Gnana Yoga, and thus the Nishkama Upasaka will attain Krama Mukti. This completes the essential teaching of the finite goals, the infinite goals, and the topic of Krama Mukti and creation. From the next verse onwards, it's a very interesting, a curious topic to know what happens after we die. How do we travel? Where do we go? I invite Srimati Sharmila Bhaktara ma'am to tell us about these two paths. Over to you, madam.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the last set of verses, that is verses 15 to 22, Shri Krishna has broadly classified all human goals into two types, the finite and the infinite. And he recommends the infinite goal, which is called Atma or Bhagwan, because God alone is Sashvatam or eternal. Verse 23 is an introductory verse where Shri Krishna tells Arjuna about the two paths which lead to these two goals and about the two types of seekers who attain these goals. So in verse 23, Yatra kale tvan avrittam chaiva yoginaha prayatayanti tam kalam vakshami bharatarshaba. O Arjuna, I shall speak about those paths departing by which path the yogis attain the world of no return and the world of return. The word meanings go like this. Bharatarshaba, best of the Bharatas. Vakshami, I shall speak about. Tam kalam, those paths. Prayataha, departing. Yatra kaletu, by which paths. Yoginaha yanti, yogis attain. Annavrittim, the world of no return. Cha eva avrittim, and the world of return. In this verse, Lord Krishna introduces the two paths, namely Shukla Gati, the brighter path, and Krishna Gati, the darker path. In his Bhashyam, Sri Shankaracharya says that as there are two paths leading to two destinations, there should be two groups of seekers. Hence, the yogis have to be divided into two types of seekers. Let us first understand the terms used in this verse. Yatra kale means by which path or marga or route. Kala devatas carry the departed jivas in these two paths, hence called kale and not marga. The term yoginaha means yogis, seekers, travelers, or pilgrims. There are two types of seekers. One group of seekers or yogis are called upasakas. And so what type of upasakas are they? They are saguna nishkama upasakas who have practiced saguna upasana all their life and also at the time of death. These upasakas travel by Shukla Gati to Brahma Loka, where they get jnanam and reach and obtain Krama Mukti or liberation. And this path of no return is called Annavrittin. The second type of yogis are karmis, who travel by Krishna Gati to Swarga Loka and return when their punyam is exhausted. And this is the path of return or avrittin. The other group, the next slide, please. What is the difference between these two yogis or groups? The Upasaka yogis do upasana and karma. Both upasana and the rituals are part of their sadhana. Hence, the punyam is more superior. The second group, who are karmis, practice only karma and they are called kevala karminaha. But both are called yogis. So, next slide, please. So, can both seekers be called yogis? Sri Shankaracharya asks, when yogis are meditators, then how can the ritualists who do not meditate also be called yogis? He also explains that Lord Krishna called the ritualists as yogis in chapter 3. And it is not incorrect to call them as yogis because one is a upasana yogi and the other is a karma yogi. Next slide, please. So is the word karma yoga an oxymoron? Swami Paramatmanandaji asks, the word yoga is used for a convergent mind and the word karma is used for a divergent mind. So the word karma yoga is an oxymoron. Swamiji also explains that karma yoga is done with Ishvara Arpana Bhava and the karma yogi remembers God all the time. Hence, the word karma yoga is correct because the external mind is divergent, but the subconscious mind meditates on God. Next slide, please. So, in conclusion, Lord Krishna has introduced two seekers, two paths, and two destinations. This is to contrast the two margas, which lead to two completely different destinations. And the intention of Sri Krishna is to contrast the two and show that Shukla Gati is a superior path, leads to infinite goal or Krama Mukti, and Krishna Gati leads to a finite goal, which is Swargaloka. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Sharmila ma'am, for that nice explanation with diagrams. Diagrams always help us understand much better. In the 7th chapter, Lord Krishna has mentioned and categorized devotees into 4: the Artha, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Gnani. Though there is a gradation, he calls them all as good people, Sukrutinaha, because they are better than mere karmis. Here, actually, there is a lower category of people who do not even believe that there is God. So they just keep doing their actions with worldly goals, with their goal as worldly objects, and then keep returning to life just based on their past karmas. So here, in fact, we have karma yogis who then graduate to upasana yogis, and then we have nishkama upasana. So here, when Swamiji says about karma yogi, so he, like Sharmila madam said, in the outwardly, though he is always engaged in karma, inwardly his mind is fixed on God. Now, when we come to sakama upasakas, who are classified as those who will travel by the darker path, they have Swarga as their goal. That is, they pray and perform all their rituals for want of better worldly lives. Whether it is better children, marks, jobs, all that. And in this worldly realm, Swarga is considered the highest goal by all theist religions, where you go and you are in a spiritual realm, and then of course you exhaust your punyas and you return. But for Advaita seekers, Swarga is a relatively lower, limited goal compared to eternal moksha. And that's what Lord Krishna has always been telling us, is to strive for the unlimited, rather the infinite, permanent goal of moksha. And here, Lord Krishna, or rather in this verse, though there is Krama Mukti, and then there is Jivan Mukti, which is prescribed in all the other chapters of the Gita. Krama Mukti is still a very distant place, rather it's just very distant and remote. But then, and that's why Sri Krishna in all the other chapters prescribes Jivan Mukti, because it is right here in this life that we can enjoy the phalam of Jivan Mukti, that we can become Sthita Prajnas who are able to lead a life of complete peace, security, and happiness despite all the worldly happenings around us. So in this goal, in this verse, the two types of seekers, those who seek finite goals and those who seek infinite goals, they are compared. And of course, Lord Krishna tells us to seek the infinite. Now we come to the last two verses of today, which will be explained by Dr. Sundar.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This might be repetitive, but for the sake of Mananam. So there are 4 broad topics that we have already seen. The chapter started with Arjuna asking about 7 terms. We saw Lord Krishna answer 6 of them in 2 verses, and then he takes a lot more verses to explain the seventh question of Arjuna, which was about the remembrance of God. What is the significance of remembrance of God at the time of death? So the first broad topic was the six definitions. The seventh, of course, becomes the second topic, which is Antakala Ishvara Smaranam. We have seen by remembering God at the time of death, one attains to Him, and the way to do that is to remember Him throughout our lives. The chapter also gave the verses, the method Krishna advises how to remember Him always. One unique thing about this chapter is this third topic, which is about Krama Mukti. Most of the chapters, verses in the Bhagavad Gita are about Sadhyo Mukti or Jivan Mukti. This chapter, Lord Krishna sets aside for those seekers who are nishkama upasakas, but who may not have the benefit of Guru Shastra Sampradaya for whatever reasons. So through this chapter, Lord Krishna says that they are not lost. For them, there is a special mukti, which is carved out, called Krama Mukti, which we are seeing in the verses in this chapter and this today's verses as well. We are now in the final topic of this chapter, where Lord Krishna is describing very interestingly two destinations, two travelers, and two paths. So this goes on till the end of the chapter, and we are right now in the verses which are dealing with the two paths, and those two paths are covered in the verses 23rd to 26th, which are labeled as bright and dark paths. Why are these labeled so? Let us see as we go further. In this next slide is a pictorial depiction of these two paths. On the left side in gray is the discussion by Lord Krishna about a sakama bhakta. This bhakta is described as artha or artharthi bhakta. He is termed a ritualist because he follows the Veda Purva or the Karma Kanda portion, but then he makes God a partner in his karmas. That is, his focus is on the worldly accomplishments, and his remembrance of God is only whenever there is some trouble or when he is beginning a new endeavor. He prays to God so that he can have better material accomplishments. Because of this person's connect with God is fleeting. Only when he needs God, he remembers him. And Lord Krishna, as we have seen in the 7th chapter also, if there is Shraddha, he shall bless even a sakama bhakta. So this kind of a bhakta is blessed by the Lord with a lot of material accomplishments, which we have seen here as the destination being the world. And as Madam has explained, if the punyam is great enough, this bhakta can go to Swarga also. That Swarga is also bundled up in the category of the world. Why is that so? Because we see the second arrow, which is the path of return. When that punyam is exhausted, one then returns back to Bhuloka. Therefore, Lord Krishna considers this as the inferior path. Although they get punyam, it is of the nature of an inferior punyam because one is reborn. There is a path of return. So Lord Krishna calls this Krishna Gati or dark path. This chapter is not really about this path. This chapter is about the middle of this slide, which is Jijnasu Bhakta or Nishkama Bhakta. Now, Lord Krishna is presenting the earlier path of return only to contrast it with this bright path, which he professes for most of us. So by comparing and contrasting, he is nudging us to not to take to sakama or artharthi type of bhakti, which is a path of return, but rather take to this bright path. So here the seeker is a Jijnasu Bhakta. So this seeker has been a Sakama Bhakta in the past. He has seen the material accomplishments blessed by Lord Krishna. But he is smart enough to see the bandhakatvam, atriptikaratvam, dukkha mishritatvam, BAD defects in those material accomplishments. As in the Mundakopanishad mantra Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan, he having realized the negative aspects of the phalas with sakama bhakti, he has turned to jijnasu bhakti. He is no longer after material accomplishments as the goal. He is after God himself as the goal. So therefore, his connect with God is more continuous, which was fleeting with the sakama bhakta is now more continuous. The earlier path, the seeker was doing kevala karma, as was shown in the presentations earlier today, whereas the jijnasu bhakta is also doing upasanam in addition to karma. Therefore, his punyam is said to be superior, and as we can see, this is the path of no return, as is shown by the single yellow arrow. He attains to God through the process of Krama Mukti, and since this path is one of no return, Lord Krishna calls this as the bright path or the Shukla Gati. We should not forget here the main theme or the Tatparyam of the Bhagavad Gita, which is towards the right side of this slide, which is neither being a sakama bhakta or nishkama bhakta, but having obtained jnana yogyata to take to Guru Shastra Sampradaya, do Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam, have samyak darshanam of that non-dual Brahman. For such a person, there is no travel. Freedom is here and now. We now look at the present verses in this next slide in the background of what we have seen so far. So the 24th shloka, Agnir Jyotir Aha Shluklaha Sanmasha Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vido Janaha. So this, by looking at the words in the first line, we can make out that this is about the bright path that Lord Krishna is talking. In the simplest form, the subject and the verb here are janaha and gachanti. That subject janaha, we can see in this verse, is qualified by the word Brahma Vidaha. We should not mistake this word to mean that they are knowers of Brahman. In the Bhashyam, the explanation is given that this word indicates a Saguna Brahma Upasaka or the Nishkama Upasaka, which we saw in the previous slides. So such Janaha Gachanti, where do they go? The object in the sentence is Brahma. This refers to Brahma Loka. It doesn't refer to Brahman. In the Bhashyam, Adi Shankaracharya says that hidden in this verse is the fact that this person doesn't directly attain to Brahman. Kramena is the word used in the Bhashyam, that gradually through the process of Krama Mukti, where one goes to Brahma Loka, under the tutelage of Brahmaji, who is the best among the teachers, what couldn't happen in Bhuloka, the Jnana Yoga part, Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam happens, and then he takes to Mukti there. The other parts of this verse is Tatra Prayataha. Lord Krishna is describing this journey or the bright path in a particular way as is described in the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutra. So the traveler is Sukshma Sharira, not Sthula Sharira. So therefore, there are certain components which are lacking in the Sukshma Sharira. There is no sight, for example, there is no senses. It is said that the Sukshma Sharira doesn't have a free will also. So therefore, the Sukshma Sharira is handheld and taken in this journey through the bright path through several presiding deities, each of them covering a segment of such journey. So this description of the Upanishads and Brahma Sutras, Lord Krishna is presenting here the names of the presiding deities who guide these travelers. And these deities are Aha, the deity of daytime, Shukla Paksha, the deity of the Shukla Paksha, the bright fortnight in the month, and Sanmasa Uttarayanam is the presiding deity of the first half of the year. In the right side, we see this blue rectangle where Brahma is highlighted in white. That is the destination that this nishkama bhakta through the bright path attains to Brahmaloka. In this next slide, we see the contrast presented by Lord Krishna by describing the dark path only to dissuade us not to take to kevala karma, not to take to sakama bhakti, not being artharthi bhakta. So this verse can be simplified as subject and verb, yogi nivartate. So yogi here in the commentary is clearly mentioned as a person who is doing sakama karma, who is an artharthi bhakta. And he nivartate. So you can see that he returns back. This returning back is further qualified by the words prapya chandramasam jyotihi. Having attained to chandramasam jyotihi nivartate, he returns back. What is chandramasam jyotihi? Chandramasam is referred to as heaven. Moon loka is referred to as heaven. And sun or surya loka is referred to the brahma loka of the previous slide. Jyoti is the word used here for phalam, that is, having attained to the phalam or the trophy of heaven, he returns back. So you can see on the blue rectangle on the right, Brahmaloka is faded out. So depending upon the punya, he ascends to these several levels of Swarga and returns. The other parts of this verse are Tatra Prayataha. Similar to the description in the previous shloka, Lord Krishna is describing in a particular way, as mentioned in the Upanishads and Brahma Sutras, the presiding deity who guide this Sukshma Sharira, the Karmi Sukshma Sharira. And the presiding deities are again Kala Devatas, Ratri, Krishna, Sanmasa, Dakshinayanam. So this is the presiding deity of the night, and then the Krishna Paksha, or the dark fortnight, and the second half of the year. So in conclusion, he is presenting dark path only to dissuade us to take to sakama bhakti, and instead he is nudging us to take to nishkama bhakti. In this chapter, he is professing Krama Mukti, but generally Lord Krishna wants us to take to Jivan Mukti. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sundar, for that very, very clear and detailed explanation of these two seemingly simple verses, but with so much knowledge contained in them. So, to conclude, what is Lord Krishna telling us here is to be a devout bhakta. I missed mentioning, be a devout nishkama bhakta. Because as long as we have worldly desires, the Lord, when we perform rituals to gain these worldly desires, He is going to grant them, but we are going to come back into this world and again go through this entire cycle of birth and rebirth. In the last two verses, Lord Krishna says that life after death, last three verses rather, is not determined by the time of death, as is the apparent meaning of the verses explained by Dr. Sundar, but rather it is determined by the type of life that we have led. And all those terms that indicate the time, be it day or night or Uttarayana, Dakshinayana, and all that, they refer to the devas who guide the Sukshma Sharira after death. So we have to make a conscious effort to remember God all the time. As Krishna will mention in the concluding verse of this chapter, he says, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu. All the time you have to remember God through Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. and purify the mind, evolving from sakama to nishkama bhakti. That will take us beyond this infinite world with all its colorful names and forms to nishkama bhakti, and eventually to moksha. So the path that's actually prescribed by Lord Krishna for a spiritual seeker would first be karma yoga, and then sakama upasana, then nishkama upasana. Then that seeker, through his punya, will come to gnana yoga and then attains jivan mukti. But here Lord Krishna is telling us that you have to practice nishkama bhakti even if you don't attain Jivan Mukti here, but through Nishkama Bhakti, you can attain Krama Mukti. And the point to take home is to, again, remember God as much as possible all the time. With that, we come to the end of today's class. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Today's verses not only clarify the path we should pursue, but they reinforce our efforts to pursue Gnana Yoga as our path. Hearty thanks to Pannaga, to all the speakers of the day for a wonderful session, and also all the Vedantins who have joined us today. We shall be back on Tuesday, the 6th September 2024, with our 15th session of Mandukya Upanishad at 6:45 p.m. to study shlokas from 34 to 38 of Vaitatya Prakaranam Karika. Remember to join us on time and benefit from the enlightening knowledge of Mandukya Upanishad. Let us conclude today's session with the Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.